There we go. So yeah, welcome. Hopefully we have some other folks join us. But if not, want to just give some time to do some intro slash updates on, here we go, some folks joining on resources and family survey start dates and availability there, and then really have time hopefully to do some peer learning around what's going on currently and seeing are they shared areas of excitement or worry, and do some sharing of how some of those worries might have been addressed as well. So since we are all fairly familiar with each other, welcome Adriana, glad to have you. I'm going to dive right in, and maybe I'll just briefly try to share the screen so you can see, if you haven't had a chance already, the YouTube playlist. It is called, let's see, can you all see that? The little eligibility determination refresher should be up and going. We have now a way, thanks to Erin and Lindsay, a way to organize our all of our YouTube resources under the coordinated enrollment umbrella, so that we have a single link that will take you to all of our recordings and things like that. You can see right now we have all our trainings in there. So we've got the eligibility refresher, the ADA new, the supporting family voice and inclusive part placements, excuse me, and the family survey overview that was yesterday. So we will be able to kind of keep adding and have a single place, a single link for you all to find all those YouTube resources as we keep adding to them. I'll also be populating our cohort times in there as well, again, so you can go back at your convenience to refresh or remind yourselves how that all went. So the link was shared in the agenda for this meeting, but I'll go ahead and try to pop that in the chat. And we'll make sure that's widely distributed while we have this resource available. Any questions, requests, comments around the YouTube, I guess, playlist it is called. I keep calling it a channel, the playlist for coordinated enrollment.
This is the first time I see something like that. That is awesome.
Awesome. Glad to see the thumbs up there. And hi, Donna. Hi, Tammy. Welcome. We were just showing off the YouTube playlist where we can organize all our coordinated enrollment stuff.
Hi, everyone.
Great. Well, just wanted to give you a quick preview in case there were any questions or anything like that. But like I said, I'll just keep using that link now to update with all of our resources rather than sending you individual links for every meeting we have. And I think that is all for that. So the next thing I just wanted to have some time to talk through was the family survey overview that Catherine and research team gave yesterday for those of you who are able to attend, to make sure you didn't have any questions or further thoughts around the survey, and also to let you know that following this meeting, I will be circulating the live links. So the survey is now available if you'd like to send to families. Again, as we talked, it's really up to you and sort of how your processes are going as to when the survey might go out to families or makes most sense to go out to families. But it is available and will be open at least through September, or at least the beginning of September, and we'll do a check-in point to see if it would make sense to keep it open longer to be able to capture family experiences of enrollment kind of through the summer fall time period. Those of you who were in the conversation yesterday, I wonder if you had any reflections or any questions that came up in the time since we spoke yesterday afternoon. Pretty straightforward.
And I guess just maybe a question and comment is that I remember there being a large meeting where we discussed the survey, and I was under the understanding that we weren't moving forward with the survey. And so then I was a little surprised yesterday, and I'm so lucky that I have Jessica, who's really leading the coordinated enrollment work. And so I'm in and out. And so I probably missed something, but I was a little surprised to see that we were moving forward just because there was so much energy around the fact that, we know that systems aren't perfect yet. Families are still learning, even, we're new to families. I mean, I could go through the whole list, but I was curious about that because I just felt like there was so much energy against the survey in the initial discussion.
Yeah, I think in that initial discussion, what we realized was, and that's where the sort of work group was identified to say like, okay, a lot of the energy, as I'm recalling, was sort of on like, well, why would we survey families that went through something like 6 or 9 months ago at this point to understand? Can we think about something that looks more proactively at like the fact that we now have a year under our belts, that we have, I think, made some adjustments and learnings as we go, but would still like to kind of continue to improve upon those. And so the work group met a couple 3 or 4 times at least, to kind of refine like what that might look like and what that feedback loop could be as well. I mean, I think the other area that I heard a lot from that first meeting was, there are things that are outside of a hub's control that, families might experience and might like attribute to their enrollment experience that we know are like programmatic decisions or policy decisions that ELD has put forward. So the group spent time as well on trying to kind of identify like what, what we do with this data, what ELD would take and sort of consider as recommendations on that policy level, and how we sort of set things in place around being clear about it, being a preschool promise piece, and trying to bring together as something that can help us sort of at both areas, kind of where there are like hub led or hub decisions around the experience, like learning from that. And then also what about preschool promise specifically, may be difficult for families. So that work group did continue. We had, I know at least one cohort update around the family survey to say we're continuing to work with PSU there. I think that was maybe May. I could be wrong there. And so I think that was a space of kind of wanting to keep updating and keep going with folks there. I know at that cohort meeting, I think it was Donna had volunteered to take a look at the draft survey for this cohort group, and give some feedback to the researchers as well there. So apologies for the lack of.
No, it's my fault. It's not your fault. It's my fault. And just my privilege of getting to have Jessica as part of this team and having her be such a great lead. So that is really helpful summary, and I appreciate that. And I see what you mean about not wanting to survey families, 6 months after the fact and wanting to be proactive. That all makes sense. So thanks for that, Yen.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder, any other thoughts or questions around that as well? The survey.
No questions. I'm just really looking forward to getting the data. I think it'll be helpful. I'm glad you guys are doing this. I know it's been a process.
It's been great to have the research support, I think, from
yeah, definitely.
from PDG as well. And just to state again, this is really something that we're looking at as like, we want to be useful for each of your regions and you specifically to be able to make some sense of, understand, what family experience looks like. And also, to be able to um, pass on what you're seeing as far as areas that preschool promise or ELD policy might need to work as well. So definitely want to see that as something we can have a continued conversation about as we get data and more experience. Yeah.
Luis is going to be trying to get back in, by the way.
Okay. Let me
Watch for him in the waiting room.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Stuff. Great. Well, like I said, you should see today sort of the email texts in 5 languages that you're able to customize as makes sense for you with now a live link to the survey. There's also now, based on yesterday's meeting, some like simplified text message language, if that's a way that's easier to reach families for you. And then of course, you can take that link and use it on any number of resources that, might be more helpful to reach families that way. It's really trust and here comes Nancy Walker, let's see. Just being able to know you have very specific ways of reaching families in your regions and however that link can be used to be shared with families, please feel free to do so, however makes sense for you all. And I'll make sure that also includes the researcher contacts if there's any issues or questions about the survey or the like technical pieces having difficulty with that as well.
Perfect. I appreciate the flexibility.
Oh, absolutely. It's I think only as usable as makes sense for you all in your processes. So certainly trying to knowing we have, the one limitation of wanting to have a way to collect it electronically across the state, right? So that's our linked based approach, but really trying to create something that can tie into the ways that you could see this being useful in your processes. Okay, any other questions, family survey or anything? Not, I'd be happy to dive into peer learning. Okay, well, I thought I would create a different spin on our kind of peer-to-peer question times. I think maybe with the time we have, what I'll ask, I'll give maybe we'll say 5 minutes to look at our first question here. I'd love to hear from all of you who feel comfortable sharing. Given your work so far on coordinated enrollment, what do you feel best about? And what I'll ask is we take some time, write down what you think about it, and then I'll ask if any of you are willing to share after now about 4 minutes. We'll say at 9:22 by my clock, we can do a short share out.
Let me rephrase that. That sounds a little choppy.
Sounds good. Awesome. I see such great things showing up in the chat. Would anyone like to um, share them, talk through their comment? See awesome things about addressing need, partnerships, huge, stronger, more well-rounded stewardship committee. That's awesome. Oh yeah, more options for families. Awesome, cool. And Tammy's excited about it all. I love that. It's really, really great to see so many concrete things coming into place for this year, as well as those really strengthened partnerships to support that work too. That's wonderful. Well, I'd love to, I think, ask our second question, which is, somewhat related and hopefully opening the area for some, consultation around that. So next, wanted a kind of a two-parter. What are you excited about or worried about related to coordinated enrollment currently? And my thought with this is maybe we do the same kind of write or otherwise share our excitements and worries, and then really kind of dive right into sort of commonalities. Where do we have the same areas, or where have we addressed the worry somewhere that might be helpful to share there? So I will do, again, how about till 9:28 to think about your excitements or worries and be prepared to share then. All right. Thank you for sharing all those in the chat. Jen, I'm glad to see that Tammy's getting the best of your thoughts there. That's wonderful. I see a lot of questions around reallocation. I see, or I should say, the first questions I see around reallocation and that process at the state. Also, what expansion will look like. Great question. Great questions. Um, More kids and families applying post COVID. That's really exciting to see. The implementation plan that came up, working towards 0 to 6 coordinated enrollment. Curious if that is the vision of the state. I would say, yeah, I think really thinking inclusively about early care and education and sort of the publicly funded options available to families. Definitely part of that vision there. Excited about written guidance around coordinated enrollment expectations, funding opportunities. And then the concern about not having enough sites, funding, families, and okay, families who don't qualify and where they go for services, what happens next? Yeah. More funding, more of preschool promise and baby promise, because there's so many families applying. That's great to hear. So location and where families need care versus where the sites are available. That's a really hard one without transportation or just being too far away, even if there is transportation sometimes. Under enrollment, yeah. So though we're post-COVID in some ways, it's not a complete snapback to engagement with families there. Oh, okay. Providers understaffed. Oh, and I see some related things between Jessica and Jen. Yeah, I wonder would anyone there? Maybe I'd love to respond where I can to some of the state questions that got asked earlier, though I know in many ways it's going to be a bit of a stay tuned. I think when I see the questions around reallocation, what I'm understanding from my colleagues is wanting to have a sense of, finalizing the number of slots for continuing providers, and then being able to reassess with the reallocation input that was received from regions, how to work through that. So I think we should soon see more coming around that specifically. I know that the expansion was alluded to in the heads up to the coordinated enrollment implementation plan. I think as we understand our legislative requirements and really try to put things in place, what we know is that we're going to have a shift in timeline around how we learn about community capacity in each of the regions. That's been part of a legislative request for us for the short session, will be to report back on community capacity for expansion in some ways. Oh, Sarah, I see you off mute there. Did you?
And I just adore you because you are so good at saying so many things without saying anything, which I realize is your role at the state. I also find that extremely frustrating. And I know that it's not you. Like, I'm not frustrated at you. So I want you to hear me say that, because I know you are amazing and we all appreciate you. And I know that some of those things are outside of your control. And so I'm not saying this to you directly, but other than that, like the reallocation specifically is the part that is just feeling like we're going to be in the same place we were last year, where we are so late to the game and families either have found, I don't need to go through all the reasons why. I just am feeling a lot of pressure on our end with the number of families that are applying to really figure out where those slots are going to go. And so I don't know if like a letter sharing some concerns about timing, or just expressing that to you so that you can then take that up. But it was so clear that the timing was such a challenge. Like that was the biggest challenge for us last year in getting to implementation and working with partners and gaining their trust. And we have partners that are saying, what's happening with those slots? How do we plan? How do we create a budget? And it's just feeling again like we're in a space, which you probably feel this way too, where we are saying the same thing, like we're just waiting for more information. And so that feels stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say like it's very helpful for me to be able to have like things to point to about how this is impacting community, impacting partners. So if a letter is a way to do that, I mean, I'm taking notes here too, because I do try to pass on as I get that feedback to say like this is impacting our ability to be successful in coordinated enrollment and really in sort of our systems level, partnerships and change pieces. But I'm more than happy to be that person, because you're right.
That's great. I mean, the reason why we're looking to reallocate those slots in the first place is because the school district that is dropping them was because of all of the timing and the challenges of working with the state and with us in coordinated enrollment. And so we are going to end up losing out on partners if we continue to function in this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And in many ways, it's like we saw in 2020, how this worked. We had delays, we missed the opportunities to align timing, and we're still in a space where we're not aligned there, and that really affects providers' abilities to operate in some cases, or their willingness to continue with the program, like you just said. And at the end of the day, that ultimately impacts children and families and the options they have available. So I really appreciate you sharing it that way, because I think it's really important to see how all these moving pieces, I think, really ultimately end up on impacting how families and children experience our early learning system and what's available for them about that. So yes, send it my way and I will do as much as I can to get real things said to you back. Let's see. I wonder if knowing that we had sort of a similar area around staff turnover with Preschool Promise sites and seeing a little bit of commonality there, maybe we could hear some about Jen and Jessica, how that's looking in your regions, and where, I mean, I think that's a huge issue I've heard everywhere too. So we'd love to hear yours.
Well, I don't, I think just say what's going on. We, out in Sheridan, our person in charge of Preschool Promise got promoted to vice principal. And then the principal left the district. And so he was immediately promoted to principal with no VP planned and no staff person for Preschool Promise. And he was telling me, I think it's going to be this person. She's going to be fabulous. And I said, oh, but she hasn't committed yet, right? He goes, oh, we haven't even talked to her about it yet.
Wow.
So it's like, here's an email address. As you're processing these applications, send it here. And I just have this huge, I mean, the people involved are fantastic, but I'm just like, there's just so much black hole that these families could fall into. And we're removed from the process. So as we're forwarding this on to this email for this person that I've never met, who is kind of peripherally connected to, it's like, how do we make sure these families are, not being dropped, So I guess that's my fear right now. And we don't want to get up in their space and say, hey, did you follow up? I don't want to be that person either. So that's just kind of what I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
We are having problems with direct level service staff. Just, I think the employee shortages across the board are impacting our region here. We have a site that's still closed, Preschool Promise site, supposed to be providing summer services, and they are still closed to Preschool Promise children. And I know they're struggling to find employees. Our school district that was going to open another classroom had some teachers quit. And so now they're struggling with that. And so our family interest is increasing across the board. Like I have parents calling every day, like checking on their application. And but now we're we're having issues with sites directly. So that's a huge struggle for us.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest struggles all across the state are school districts, because they live in their own little bubble, and coordination doesn't seem to be something that they do very well outside of their own district. So you could have the best plan in the whole world, but they are not going to play necessarily by your rules. So every Preschool Promise that we have in our hub is housed in the school district. However, all but one is going to, which is a total of 3. So 2 out of 3 have connected with us, want to do it right. Well, one of them is my Head Start program, so they don't have a choice. But there is one in a school district, and the superintendent and the teacher want to do it right. So they've been very easy to work with. We have another one that just does their own thing, and they give us information. So it's not like they withhold information, but they want to do their own thing their own way. And I just see this as something that is going to happen statewide. I mean, these school districts are not isolated or unusual. It's really the norm. And I think any type of coordinated enrollment is going to hit a roadblock and a challenge working with the school districts, because they don't know how to play with our rules, and much less they don't really want to follow our rules. So that will, I think, is going to be something that we're going to find as a challenge. It always has been. And I think the more that school districts get into Preschool Promise, the bigger the challenge becomes.
Yeah, I saw a lot of head nodding. Oh, go ahead, Jessica.
I was just going to say, as Sarah stated earlier, we lost a school district. They said, nope, we're not going to do it again. And there were a lot of reasons behind that. And they just didn't want to serve 3-year-olds. They didn't want to communicate with us. With everything getting started late, it left a bad taste in their mouths. And so we lost that site. And now we have 20 kind of floater slots. And we have a school district that is working with us, and they're working with us, but at the same time, they're out on summer vacation right now. And so they're like, see you in the fall. And I know that when they come in the fall, they're going to be like, I don't really want to do it this way. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that would have been great to discuss this summer. So that's a personal struggle I'm dealing with, if you can't tell. And the only way that I've been able to, my camera goes in and out, I'm leaving it off. The only way that I've been able to even kind of really work with them is to be like, I want to help you. Like, I will coordinate the enrollment for all of your slots. Like, I will contact the family so that you don't have to. And that's been like the only kind of carrot to really get them to work with us. And even that, school districts are very much in their own world. That's for sure.
Well, we have a similar situation, except that they don't want us. They have told us that in the West Valley, families, and we know this from experience, they don't trust anybody who's not from there. And so when we come in from the outside, we're strangers, and they don't respond well to us. And so a lot of it is the school district does the outreach, then they send them to us, and we do the paperwork, and then we send them back to the school district so they can follow up. And, as long as they have the bandwidth, it's okay. But But then also that same district is like, well, we don't want to tell any kids no. So we let everybody in, and then they send them to us for paperwork, and they drag their feet and they drag their feet because they're in. They're in, they're being served. And we're like, you can't do that. Well, we don't want, we have these open seats. We need to be serving kids. And I'm just like, you're creating a monster. So we're trying to put processes in place for this fall where it's like, okay, we will work with the kids. We'll work with the families for, we haven't decided yet, X number of days or X number of weeks. And then they're off our system, and I hate to be that way, but it's like, if you're going to put kids in without going through the paperwork, we need to have a way to say, this is the end of the road if you haven't filled out your paperwork, because, it's just creating a snarly little mess. But
With Head Start, if we don't do the paperwork right, then they take our funding away. And that really causes us to pay attention. Now, most of us don't ever get to that point. But I'm saying there's always that carrot out there. If you don't follow the rules, then we don't release money to you because you haven't followed the rules. And I think that's the only thing that speaks to school districts. They're always looking for more money. And it's interesting to me that for so long, I can tell you, I've been in this business for a long time. And for the longest time, school district would say, just play with the kids and send them to us. We'll teach them something. And they didn't value early childhood at all. Gradually, after 20 some years, they are getting an idea, but it's because now early childhood is significantly important throughout the United States, kind of on the top. So now they're getting into it and they see the value of it, but they only want to do it their way. The only thing that speaks to them is withholding dollars, because then they say, oh, we can't operate, without money, but you have to follow the rules to get the money.
well, and our sites both of them have private slots and scholarship slots. So they just bring them in under scholarship slots until they can finish the preschool promise paperwork. But then there's not the incentive for the families to do the paperwork because they're already in and they're not paying anything. So why should they do all this paperwork? So it's a challenge.
Yeah, it is. This for me is kind of sparking, I think there's some things around like, working with, planning with, partnering with, so that families do have done their eligibility work before starting services. And I wonder if for particular grantees or types, if there's like a stronger message that might be needed or that, can be.
So well intentioned. It comes from the best of intentions. It's just messes up the process.
Right. Yeah. Let's see. I'm just curious. I know I wanted to make sure I'm monitoring the chat well to see, what other areas we might want to talk about or cover. There's so much here with school district partnerships and like participation in preschool promise. I don't want to lose that, like lose that strain with that. I'm wondering, I guess, Donna, seeing your under enrollment question, is there kind of an area there around family outreach and how school district partners are doing or not, or what you're seeing as some of the areas around family engagement that haven't picked up quite the way you'd hoped?
I'm not sure in our small communities exactly what our challenge is.
Mm-hmm.
Know that the one school district in Prairie City is fully enrolled. The one in Long Creek is not. Our Head Start or our preschool promise here with our Head Start program, it took them a while, but they finally were fully enrolled, and we were in person all year long. So it was like started and we just kept going and things worked well. And now as we're facing this year, typically we are fully enrolled about this time during the summer and then have a waiting list. This year we do not. We're not fully enrolled yet. So I think there are children out there, but I think it's going to be a slow process because families have gotten used to not having their kids in school. They've been used to not looking for a preschool program because that's one more thing for them to do and they don't want to do it. So we have done everything that we can think of to let people know that we are taking applications. My experience has been usually families that live in poverty wait until the last minute. So we're holding out that maybe the second week of August, people will say, oh, I should get my child enrolled in preschool because, my kids are going to school. So we'll see. It's just after COVID, it's just a slow go. And I know the feds have given us until January to be fully enrolled, but then after that, we will be held accountable for enrollment. So I'm hoping that by the time January rolls around, that enrollment is not an issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds like really important things for us to all know about Head Start, particularly too. Like January is going to feel like a big pressure to know that the requirements are coming back and want to support that as well and make sure that's there. Oh, I see Jen saying similarly, looking at mid-August picnic in the park. I love that.
Wait, it's almost time.
Yeah. Think about that. Oh, cool. And I see Jessica saying attending the free meal events at school districts, handing out info, using that as a way to inform and engage families too. Yeah. Good to see. Ah, cool. Library partnerships coming up too. Yeah. I want Adriana or Tammy, I just want to make sure you have a chance if there's things that you have questions about, worried about, want to hear from others too. Make sure that a chance to hear from you.
Sorry, my computer was freezing and my internet, but hi everyone, Adriana Garcia. I turned my camera off because I'm working from home and so the kiddos are here. So they're just like, my little one especially wants to be on camera, but no, are the new applications for the 2021-22 school year available? I know I'm touching base with Krista this week to kind of put together our recruitment plan. We do work with the local Sunshine Kids preschool here in Wasco County, and they help us with the recruitment as far as if families don't qualify for their program, then they give them our information and stuff like that. And then, but definitely we do in like Herd River County, they do families in the park in August. So we're hoping that's going to come back. But that's one of the things I haven't been able to touch base with Krista is if the new application is available, because they do have families reaching out regarding enrollment and stuff like that. So
yes, I can definitely make sure you have those already. We've got them available in 5 languages and the supplemental forms as well. So I'll make sure you get those.
thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So hearing similar, like finding the outreach ways, wanting to see how families are engaged and interested, start to put things in place. I'm glad to hear you're hearing from families. Sounds like some interest already there, which is great.
Yes, which is awesome.
Yeah. How about you, Tammy? Anything coming up or want to share?
We have had, sorry, my video's off too for the same reason. I get sketchy internet. So we've had parents calling us, which has been really nice. And then when we hired Nubia, who is bilingual, and she's been doing parent cafes. And then she knows everybody because she's been home visitor, she's been a preschool teacher and everything. And so she has just, through her own connections, been signing parents up. So in the last, I don't know, it's ramped up this last month. I feel like it's really ramped up, and we've had some really big numbers. I think the most frustrating thing that parents don't understand, and it's been not hard for us, but I hate talking, telling them, but it's like we've been getting calls since April because we're in such a society that people think it's first come, first serve, that they start to get frustrated because they're like, we want to know where our kid's going to be. And then for me to say, I'm so sorry, but technically I can't even confirm your placement until the contract is signed with your provider. So I've been trying to avoid that. And so far we haven't, we're not too far over. And I'm hoping I can avoid a lottery by just parent choice and trying to fit people into places. Some have extended care, some don't. But anyway, that's been our most frustrating is feeling parents' frustration and totally getting it and being, I'm so sorry, but that's just kind of the way it is. And so unfortunately, then the state becomes the bad guy, so I don't know if somebody has a better way of explaining it. I basically just say, I don't know. I try to avoid it. I do circles around it, but but I'm getting frustrated, or parents saying, how come we don't know for sure? So anyway,
Yeah.
but that's been, and I don't have any school districts that have spots. And so I'm really not, I'm not running into that kind of stuff, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Jessica's yes and multiple exclamation points was probably related to the families being used to first come first serve model, or sign up early and you'll guarantee a spot, and that looks different with limited public funding. Even as, I mean, it sounds like, Tammy, the ways you're approaching it around family choice and seeing where and how that looks, may help with some of that, but still, faces a possibility that
Yeah.
there may be more interested families and eligible families even than there are spaces available, which
Yeah.
is really tough to message.
Well, and then the other frustrating piece for parents is they're just barely overqualified. And so then, and there just really aren't any resources here. We don't have a whole lot of preschools. And they're like, I could afford to pay for it, but I don't have anywhere to pay. There isn't anything. So, but that's a community. That's a community issue that we'll work through with our EC sector planning and all that. So, and then the final thing, I don't know if anybody's hitting this too. I heard people talking about COVID. We're hitting we're getting a few families, and I've gotten some more, Anne, who don't want to put their kids in the kindergarten yet, and they're 5, or they're going to be 5 in August, and they say it's too soon. We want them in preschool again. And so I'm having to tell them, I'm so sorry, you can't be in preschool promise.
Yeah. Oh, I see Jessica seeing that as well. Yeah, and where we have, in rule that if a child's eligible for kindergarten, or can go to kindergarten, by their age, then they're no longer eligible for preschool promise. So what does that look like if families aren't sure about kindergarten? Yeah.
Yes, Tammy, we are struggling with all of that. I have parents who will call me like 5 times in an hour, and I call them back and I'm like, hey, what's up? And they're like, we want to sign our kid up for preschool. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, let me walk you through that process so that you can know and not panic and know that it's not first come, first serve. And yeah, I was surprised how many families that we've had that are like, yeah, like they apply for preschool. And I'm like, oh, your kiddo's 5. that's kindergarten. And they're like, well, we didn't do anything last year because of COVID. And so we don't think they're ready. And that has been a huge struggle. And luckily we've been able to pass those families off to our school district contacts and be like, oh, well, this person can talk with you about that a little bit more. Because our preschool promise coordinator is also the principal of one of our elementary schools. And so she can talk about that kind of overlay, but it's been rough, and I understand where parents are coming from. And it's actually very nice that I'm able to be like, oh, sorry, here's Carly. she can talk to you about that a little bit more. But yes, Tammy, all of the same things.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is that one of the parents who wanted to do that was one of the principals at the elementary schools. So I thought that was interesting.
Oh
Yeah.
boy. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm like, well, you don't qualify for preschool promise anyway, so you can put your child in you can pay for preschool, but I mean, I said it nicer than that. He was persistent on, well, are there any exceptions? Is it what's happening in the state? So there are none. I asked Ann, everyone, there are no exceptions to that rule.
Yeah. Yeah. That is it. Oh, and I see Jessica has a 10 a.m. and we are right at time there. Thank you all for sharing. Like I said, you'll see some updates or you'll see the finals on the family survey for you to decide how to start distributing. And Tammy, don't stop asking me. All of you, please feel free to reach out with the questions you're getting, and we'll try to get you the responses you need. And certainly around allocations, around what's coming with the coordinated enrollment implementation plan and what you can expect, we will be in constant communication about that as we keep going. So take care, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing today. And I will, I'm sure, see you all very soon. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.